You are not allowed to start law school until you know the things that I'm about to tell you in this video. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have not done a sit down video in absolutely forever, but I am here to bring you things you need to know before law school. I'm a 3L, so I have 2 years of law school under my belt. I think by this point I've probably figured it out, and I'm here to share some of my tips. I have a very long list, so if you want a part 2 to this video, let me know and I will make it. I think when you're starting law school, it can be so easy to get overwhelmed with the sheer amount of new experiences that sometimes you lose sight of what's important. You get caught up in things that don't matter. There are just certain things you really need to keep into perspective when starting law school. And there are things you need to know. So we're gonna get into the video. If you have any other video requests, please let me know down in the comments below and I will do my best to make all the videos that you would like to see. Number 1, your first semester grades are the most important, depending on what your goals are. If you have your eye on a big law job, your first semester grades really do set the tone. And I did not know this when I started. I was extremely oblivious to the importance of first semester grades specifically. Obviously, I knew since I was in law school, grades are important. I knew since we were kind of graded against each other that it was important to do well. I did not understand how much your employment opportunities hinge on your first semester grades. Your second semester grades to a lesser extent. Let me just give you a timeline. You're starting to apply to jobs for your 1L summer around January, when you get your fall grades back. If you get a 1L summer associate position at a firm, you are likely going to get a return offer to work there your second summer as well, and you are likely to get a full-time post-grad offer. That's the reason why these positions are so important, because a lot of big firms hire out of their summer class. There aren't a lot of positions open to people who are not summers. I'm not saying that it's categorically impossible, but it's a lot harder if you don't summer at that firm. So that's why first semester grades are so important if you're looking for big law firms, because your first semester grades could translate and very likely will translate to a full-time post-grad job offer. That's why I think my biggest piece of advice your first semester is to start taking practice exams and learning how law school exams work as soon as possible. I've heard that the book Getting to Maybe is a great resource to learning how to take a law school exam, because a lot of people kind of get wrecked their first semester, not because they're academically not capable or not because they're truly not up to par to the rest of their classmates, but because they've never seen an exam like a law school exam and they just didn't know how to handle it. Afterwards, your spring grades are also really important because you're going to be using that to apply to 2L summer jobs. And if you're like me, I did not get a firm job in my first year. I got one my second year. So my spring grades were very important because I was interviewing with those grades. That's kind of my spiel. Your first year grades are the most important. Fall probably more so if you're gunning for one of those big law summer associate positions your first year, but I can understand from an outside perspective how that feels a little bit unfair that somebody can ride their first semester grades literally through the rest of law school, but I don't make the rules. That's just how the system works. You gotta play the game. Number 2, there is no correct career path. It's super easy to think you have to be big law or bust. I remember I didn't even know what big law was when I started law school. Like, to me, it was just this like buzzword that didn't really mean anything. Basically, big law firms are law firms generally with over 500 lawyers, I think is the definition. It depends also what geographic market you're in. Like, usually big law categorically means like New York, Chicago, DC, but it can be other markets have their big law sort of equivalent. But I think a lot of people come into law school and they think I have to do big law and that's the only option for me. For a lot of people, it truly probably is the only option, because if you're taking out $100,000 worth of loans, the best way to pay them back is with a big law job. So for some people, it truly doesn't feel like an option. If you're lucky enough to be on scholarship, if you're lucky enough to not have a lot of student loans, think about what you want to do. I know it can be super easy when you see all of your classmates around you doing a certain thing. They're all going to big firms. I don't really want to do that. What do I do? Don't let yourself get caught up in the correct career path. Make sure you keep your interest in mind. If you want to do public interest and that's all you've ever wanted to do, don't let everybody else doing big law sway you. There's no one correct way to do law school. Say you're on a full ride scholarship and you decide that you want to finish out law school but you don't want to be a practicing lawyer. There are a ton of JD Advantage jobs out there that aren't practicing lawyers that are like perfectly fulfilling careers. So think about that as well. I will hesitate by saying if you're taking out $200,000 worth of loans and you don't want to practice law, that's probably a different story. But if you're on like full scholarship and you're in your second year thinking, I don't think I want to practice law, finish it out. Get your degree. The degree can only help you. So that's kind of my caveat there, but just don't feel like there's one correct career path of, oh, I have to start a big law firm, I have to clerk for a judge for X number of years, then I have to do this because that's what everybody else does, and if I don't do those things, I will not have a fulfilling career. Not true. Do not, especially if you come in super passionate about something, do not let what other people are doing, what your school says, don't let all that stuff sway you. Okay, this is number 3. And I tried to avoid this a lot, and honestly, it's just not possible. You will burn out. It is how you handle it that matters. My biggest thing when I came into law school was this idea of avoiding burnout. I talked about it so much on my channel when I started law school. I'm doing this to avoid burnout. You're not gonna avoid it. It's just how, if you're practicing law, say you graduate from law school, I'll graduate when I'm 25. If I'm practicing law for 40, 50 years, I'm going to burn out at some point. There is no avoiding burnout. There is no sidestepping burning out. It's just gonna happen. And honestly, law school's 3 years long. I started burning out my second semester. Law school is a lot. So you are going to burn out. There are going to be weeks when you don't want to go to class. It's how you deal with that that matters. Do you beat yourself up about it? Do you isolate yourself? Do you completely shut down? You can find healthier coping mechanisms and accept that burnout is just going to be part of the picture. And by accepting it, I feel like when it's happening to you, you give it less power over you. The first time I felt burnt out, I panicked. Now, when I feel periods where I feel burnt out, I just sit with it. I just tell myself, yeah, I'm burnt out right now. It sucks. And during that time, I try to be a little bit nicer to myself. I try to prioritize my workouts, prioritize spending time with friends, and then I'll feel a little bit more rejuvenated. And then I have another few months where I feel perfectly 100% okay. You're gonna get burnt out. It's how you deal with it that matters. You are going to get close to your law school friends really quickly, and it is going to surprise you. And law school is such, and I've talked about this on my channel before, law school is such a full encompassing experience. You will meet somebody and you'll just click with them and they will literally be your best friend. I have found that my law school friendships have been more fulfilling because it is so nice having people around me who are like-minded. We generally have similar personality types and you're just spending a lot of time together, especially your 1L year. If you're in sections, like you're gonna be spending a ton of time with your section all the time. You will get very close to them. My best friend and I, we got extremely close, extremely fast, just because of the nature of what we were doing. We were spending all day, every day together, studying together, eating meals together. You will get close to people really, really, really quickly, and it's kind of weird, but it's just how it works. It's kind of like, law school is kind of like a cult. The legal community is kind of like a cult in that we all do kind of think similarly just because the legal curriculum is changing the way you think. It's really cool to be around people who are like-minded but also really smart. You will notice that, and it will be a little bit weird. The next one is directly addressing one of my fears that I had when I started law school. I made a video called My Law School Fears that I made before I even started, and I addressed this in the video, and it was my fear of networking. I was so shy when I started law school, painfully shy. I am naturally pretty introverted, and the idea of networking with attorneys freaked me out. Like, it freaked me out a lot. I was so nervous about it. I thought about it so much. I thought it was the one thing that was gonna stand in my way of being a good lawyer, was my inability to network. I think I built it up in my head as this big thing, and it's not. It's just not. I will tell you, 2 years later, I am so comfortable networking now. A lot of it is exposure, just forcing yourself to do it over and over and over. And do I have awkward interactions with people at happy hours? Of course I do. Everybody does. Sometimes it's a very unnatural thing and it doesn't feel super organic, but you still have to do it. And I will say, it is like a muscle. The more that you use it, the better you get. The more you network, the better you get. For one, the more you learn about the legal community, the better equipped you are to ask really good questions. As you go and as you get more experience, you also have more talking points. So you do get better as time goes on. If you would have thrown me in a room full of attorneys 2 years ago, I would have probably went into the bathroom and cried. I was so anxious. Now, It's second nature. It's just what you do. It's part of the business. Client development is a huge part of being a lawyer, and it's something you need to get better at. But just because you're naturally introverted does not mean you're doomed. It just means you might have to work a little bit harder at it. But the more you do it, the better you will get at it. The next one. Everything is going to take you forever when you start law school. Everything. The readings, I remember my 1L readings, I'd have like a 15-page reading for property. It would take me 3 to 4 hours. Everything took forever. Case briefs took forever. Copying over my notes took forever because I couldn't make sense of what they were saying. Everything took way longer than it takes me now. And that's just part of the process. Now I can make it through a 15-page reading in 45 minutes because I understand what I'm looking for. Over time, those buzzwords, those phrases start to stick out to you, and it does get a lot faster. For example, last year, I joined Law Review. We got our first check, which is basically checking citations and articles that are going to be published. My first check took me 20 hours. Now I can get a check done in 5 to 6 hours. So it does, over time you get faster, but don't get frustrated and think that you're kind of doomed. Like, oh my gosh, my readings are gonna take me 7 hours for one class a week. It's always gonna take me that long. No, you learn, you get better. So don't get frustrated, because I know it can be really frustrating, especially if you're a fast reader, because generally when it comes to books and normal things, I'm a very fast reader. When I started law school, I had a dictionary pulled up. I was constantly searching words. I was like, I don't know what any of this means. I was underlining things to come back to it. That's fine. That's normal. You start to get the jargon. You start to understand the legalese pretty quickly. So do not worry if everything takes you a super long time at first. That is normal. And finally, this one is super important, and I kind of touched on it a little bit already. You are going to be pressured to do everything. You will see people in your class who are SBA president, and they founded a student organization, and they're on moot court, and they're on law review, and they're TAing a class, and they're seemingly doing 100 different things. And you will feel pressured to do that. You'll have an inclination to do as much as possible because everybody around you is. I caution you to think about your goals. Is this something that's going to make me happy? Or am I doing it for a line on the resume? Because at the end of the day, it's better to be in the top 10% of your class than to be in the bottom half of your class with a bunch of random organizations on your resume. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, grades are what matters. And if you are just joining these organizations just to have lines on your resume, they're not fulfilling you, you're just doing it because you feel like you have to, don't do it. Because you are going to make yourself absolutely miserable. If you have absolutely no desire to be on law review, don't be on law review, because it will take up hundreds of hours of your time and you will be absolutely miserable. Do not feel like you have to do something because others around you are doing it. And if you're doing it, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. For most of us, it's our last 3 years of school. It's important that you're having fun. It is. Law school has been one of my favorite experiences I've had in my life. I have loved law school. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have not subjected myself to things that I don't want to do. So don't fall into that trap, because these are the last 3 years of school. Make the most out of them. After this, you're going to be working probably a busy job with long hours. And this is our time to enjoy ourselves, have fun. Law school is too short to do things that you don't want to do. And with that, I am going to end out this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know if you want another video, a part 2, because like I said, I have a whole note with about 15 more things, so I could talk for a while about this topic. And if you have any other sort of back to school videos that you want to see, let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye guys.